Happy Wednesday, Cardinal Territory fam. Woo and Bernie Miklasz back at you to preview the final game of the Cardinals A series. St. Louis fresh off a 2-1 win over the A's on Tuesday. They'll go for the rubber match today behind Matthew Liberatore. But if you are listening to this podcast, you're probably here to talk or listen to about Jordan Walker. Bernie, on your show on the Gas House Gang on KMOX yesterday, manager Ollie Marmol and hitting coach Brant Brown joined you, Tom Ackerman, and Chris Ranji, as they do Ollie Marmol does every Tuesday at least. And some interesting conversation and discourse was had about Jordan Walker. We know it has not been the season that either he or the Cardinals were hoping for at the plate. Let's dive into some of those comments, Bernie, because, that was about as candid as we've seen the coaching staff about a player all year.
Yeah. Listen, first of all, I want to just kind of let everybody know who hasn't listened to that show. You know, Ollie's been doing it all season on Tuesdays at noon on KMOX, and it's always available online afterwards. So I wanted to throw that out there. But the thing about Ollie is he actually approached KMOX and he said, I don't feel like people, fans generally speaking, got a true sense of me. They just they read a couple quotes, they see little. They see a little, 2 or 3 minutes of video, and that's it. And he wanted to branch out and really get into some deeper discussions. And he made it clear to me he wanted any question that I had in mind. Like, in other words, he wasn't expecting me or anyone else to shy away from asking him stuff that might be sensitive. And he's been great. And I think actually fans that have bothered to take the time to watch it have been impressed by him and the fact that he's candid. He'll take on any question and handles himself very well. I think they're seeing a different side to him. So I've enjoyed doing it. And I totally respect him for putting it out there. And during the show too, there's a comment section and you have the usual people that, instead of asking him a question or even just offering constructive criticism, they'll attack him personally and all that stuff. So you're never going to get rid of those people, but he doesn't care about that either. He just shakes it off. He laughs it off. So anyway, I didn't mean to take up too much time on that. Anyway, I asked the question that got the ball rolling about Jordan Walker and, basically asked Brownie, what progress, if any, are you seeing? And, what is he going to have to do to get going? And, Brownie, he wasn't hostile. He wasn't disrespectful. He just basically said he's got to be more devoted to preparation. They're basically saying he's got to work harder. He's got to dig in more. He's got to study pitchers more. And then, there were some things in there too, basically saying, they're giving him a plan. They're giving him an approach. They have very specific instructions that will make him better. And they continue to tell him they believe in him, but he'll try to do it their way, and then he's uncomfortable, and then he sort of reverts back to what he was doing, and then it just gets worse and worse and worse. And as Brownie said, they just have this back and forth going on and on and on that way, and they can't get out of that cycle where they kind of repeat the same cycle over and over again. So I think they're frustrated, but people need to know that they still have, they have not given up on him. But Katie, you and I have talked about this season. Final thing I'll say, with Jordan Walker, and even Nolan Gorman earlier, Ollie also made it clear that playing time had to be earned. So I think they're being consistent with that. There's really no reason to play Jordan Walker that much right now because he's been totally lost at the plate.
So I think the discourse with Jordan is so interesting because at the beginning of the year, he was recognized, prioritized, whatever word you want to use, by John Mozeliak as the player to figure it out this season. This transition year, this runway season, whatever annoying term you want to describe it as, applied to Jordan Walker specifically. And I'll backtrack so that people who might have missed Brant Brown's interview, if you have, I fully recommend you check it out, available on KMOX or on Twitter. They post the recordings there every day. Here's what Brant Brown said about Jordan Walker from a preparation standpoint on your show, Bernie. He said, at some point in time, Walker's going to have to devote more focus on preparation. One thing with him is we've played a massive game of tennis going back and forth with what he feels like he needs to do versus what he really needs to do. But for me, there's a really easy way out. He might have to be a little bit more uncomfortable to be able to achieve what we wanted to achieve. So to me, it's a two-part thing when we're looking at Jordan Walker. One is about establishing an approach, which the Cardinals have done all season long. The second part is committing to an approach. I'll go back to our earlier banner here. It's very clear to me, and in my conversation with Jordan, I spoke to him yesterday before the game. He said as well, when things start to turn and he starts to struggle, Walker has not committed to sticking with that approach in those times of struggle. Now, it can be human nature when things are going poorly to revert back to what is comfortable. Walker will be the first to say, this new approach is something that's not similar to how I grew up hitting, how I started my career. It's different. I'll say different doesn't mean bad, but it is a change. It is an adjustment. And that's why the Cardinals were giving him so long to make that adjustment. But I asked him, I said, would it be fair to say that when you start to struggle, because since August 10th, I believe he's hitting 138 with an OPS of 423 strikeouts. So yes, things are not going well. Is it safe to say that you inadvertently maybe revert back to what you're comfortable with instead of sticking with the approach? And that's when things get out of hand. And he said, yes. I'll read his quote here in The Athletic. He said, sometimes I do that, but not consciously. I'll get in the box and think this is what's comfortable right now. And it might be something that I used to do. Looking at the tape, I'm standing wide and getting more into my legs, and I'm stepping towards the plate. Even when I'm going bad, I'm doing that. It doesn't feel like my old swing at all. Going back to, I guess, what is comfortable, but when I look at the tape, doesn't look like the old swing. Now I'm just trying to keep towards the approach. And I agree. When you look at Jordan Walker's stance, it's different. The approach, though, changes almost every week based on how he's feeling. And that's, I think, where the frustration is from the coaching staff to the player. I agree with you, Bernie. Ollie Marmol and Brant Brown are still very high on Jordan Walker. I actually think this is probably the most optimistic they felt about him in quite a while. At some point, it's on the player to commit to an approach. And talking to Jordan yesterday, it seemed clear that he understands he needs to do that. Now he has 3 weeks or so to prove that he can.
And, and we need to point out, which we have and we will, they only want what's best for him. It's not like they're messing with him just to mess with him. They're not screwing around. I mean, Brant Brown has helped so many hitters during his career, including late career Albert Pujols, who swears by him. And so I have limited empathy for Walker from the standpoint that they're doing everything they can to help him. They're giving him a very specific plan, and they don't change the plan. They're not all over the map with it. It's very much defined what they want him to do, how he's got to change to get better results. And as you just pointed out, and after talking to him, he tries it. He feels a little uncomfortable, as Brant Brown alluded to, sorry, where it's like, well, he feels uncomfortable, so he just, I'm going to go back to what feels comfortable, even though he gets terrible results when he does it. So they're really trying everything, and I think they're totally genuine in terms of their belief in him. They're a little frustrated with him. That's okay. They're allowed to be frustrated, but I also think it was time for some, straightforward talk, and they delivered that on the show. And I don't know that was because they thought they had to send him a message publicly. Ollie Marmol doesn't operate that way. I think Brant Brown is kind of like, if you ask him a question, he's going to tell you what he thinks. He doesn't care whether it's in the dugout or it's on the radio or wherever it is. So I hope that for his sake, I hope Walker understands what they're trying to do here. And I know that there are some fans who can say, well, he did fine as a rookie, so why did they change anything? Well, you could probably elaborate on that. I mean, a guy that's 6'6" and 250 pounds and hits the ball that hard and hits it that far when he makes contact, which is the real problem. I don't think the team's crazy to say, you know what, you got to channel that strength differently. We don't want you, like, your game should not be ground ball singles, hard hit ground balls, but still ground balls. If you get the ball in the air, good things will happen. So this is hardly a radical thing that they have asked him to do. In fact, I would say that it's very typical. I would say that it's very common. It's not like they're, coming out of left field with some outlandish, esoteric hitting approach. You're a big, strong guy, and if you can start to pull the ball and get some lift, the numbers will be outstanding. Because I've heard fans actually just imply basically, okay, just let him be a singles hitter. Well, no, that actually would be given up on him. right?
This is not a singles hitter game anymore. And for Jordan Walker,
Well, let me tell you, in St. Louis it is, just so you know. But anyway, go ahead.
A lot of things. With Jordan Walker, you're spot on, Bernie, with his athleticism and his power and his stature and his speed. You are doing him a disservice if you let him stick to that approach where it's mostly ground balls. Yes, hard hit. That exit velo is real, but he's not nearly touching his ceiling unless he adjusts to the way that he's being pitched at the major league level, which he's still having trouble doing so. He's 23 years old. Okay, so let's pump the brakes a little bit on the, it's time to move on from the Jordan Walker experiment. Absolutely not. He was a first-round pick in 2020, a former top 100 prospect in MLB, and he's 23. Give him the time. This is the time in the organization where they can actually afford to do so. And in years, the last 10 years, there would not be a window for Jordan Walker. So let's, understand that there needs to be more of a buy-in from the player who, and I'll read some more quotes from Jordan, seems to understand that now as we roll into September and that runway is all of a sudden coming up to a clear end. But for Walker, when you're looking at who he is as a player, I mean, this quote right here from Ollie Marmol yesterday in the pregame media scrum, I think shows exactly how the organization feels about him. Ollie said, he was candid, "We have not seen the consistency that we would have hoped for by now regarding Walker. Our hope is that changes. He is still young, and this could flip at any moment. We've seen other players where that's the case, where it's an offseason away type of thing. But there's real work to be done here, and there's a real level of dedication and consistency that come with it." And here's what Jordan Walker said. "I just need to be consistent with the approach. Figure out what is at fault when things are going bad, what's going well when things are going good." I asked Jordan then, what does he need to see in the final 3 weeks of the season? And he said, better play, better discipline. Play discipline is where I really need to show the biggest growth. In my personal opinion, once the play discipline is there, I'll get something to hit and I'll hammer it or I'll walk. Play discipline, approach often tie in. They're very similar. So the manager, the hitting coach, and the player are saying the same thing. Now, can Jordan do it? That is the big question, and something that Bernie, you and I can dive into a little bit more after a quick message from our friends at DraftKings. NFL fans, week 1 just became your place to play free and grow the bag. DraftKings Pick 6, an official partner of the NFL, is here with Bag Builder, a completely free way to play for a share of $1 million or more in cash. Download the Pick 6 app, DraftKings' easiest way to play fantasy, using code FOUL. Enter for free. Just make 6 picks, more or less, on player stats for week 1. No entry fee, no catch. Want an even bigger shot? Share your link with friends to add more cash to the bag and get bonus shots to win. As the player count goes up, so does the prize. Hit all 6 of your picks, and you'll be splitting a bag that's already at $1 million or more. Don't just sit back, get in for free, build the bag, and run it up. Download the DraftKings Pick 6 app, use code FOUL, opt in, and start stacking entries for NFL Week 1. Zero cost, huge upside in partnership with DraftKings Pick 6. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org in Connecticut. Must be 18 plus. Age and eligibility restrictions vary by jurisdiction. Pick 6 not available everywhere, including New York and Ontario. Void where prohibited. Must claim token for free entry in Bag Builder contest. Only perfect entries earn share of cash prize. Tokens are single use and expire September 8th at 8:15 p.m. Eastern. Terms at pick6.draftkings.com/promos. That ad read it stresses me out. It really does. Every time I hear it, I actually puts me in a weird mood. I do not like hearing it.
I'm doing the same thing now at STL Sports Central with some new DraftKings copy, which I'm happy to read. But I haven't stumbled around too badly. So I'm doing okay. Not as good as you though.
Yeah, well, you got to bring the best for our sponsors. So
that's right.
That was a lot. Anyway, Bernie, I think it's safe to say this will probably just be a Walker episode because there is so much to break down here. Now that we know kind of where the rooted issue is, and I don't want this to come across as Jordan being defiant. Okay. I also agree with you that this is not a situation where the Cardinals are really asking him to do anything outside of the ordinary. They already did that when they asked him to play the outfield in the major leagues with 6 weeks of prep. Okay. That was outrageous. This is what almost every player in the big leagues is asked to do at some point in their career, adapt and change your approach. And that can be really hard. In 23 and 24, Jordan was doing that, and he knew if he didn't hit in 2 or 3 weeks, he was going right back to the minors. This year, that was the whole point. He wouldn't have to go back to the minors. They identified that before the season even started. Regardless of results, Walker is going to play. Now it's September, so that philosophy doesn't fly as hard as it did in the first half. To your point, he hasn't been playing well, and the Cardinals will reward playing time to the players that have seized the opportunity throughout the season. That doesn't mean they're giving up on Jordan. It just means they need to see more of a commitment to what they believe is the right approach. So with that being said, Bernie, with 20 plus games left in this 2025 season. What should we expect from Walker to finish the year that would, if he finishes it this way per se, how would you be optimistic about that?
Well, I probably wouldn't. I mean, listen, I don't rule out the fact that he might go on a nice run here over the final 3 weeks. But I don't know that I would have faith in it, because you get into 2026 and then he starts off slowly, things like that. I mean, we've seen this cycle over and over again, and then he loses his confidence and he presses and he starts swinging at everything again. He gets away from the plan. It's just this never ending thing. It just you never know when to trust it. You're starting to feel good about him, and then it just falls apart again. And the one thing I'll say that really does bother me about Jordan Walker, I want what's best for him. I'm hoping for him to succeed. I am not a Jordan Walker hater by any stretch of the imagination, but it does trouble me when you have the hitting coach and the manager basically saying he lacks commitment, and that reduces my level of empathy, I would say, because you would think that after failing, so much, and he's obviously frustrated. He wants to do well, but after failing so much and having to, always hear about basically the fact that he's doing so poorly, I would think that he would just be motivated to the max to just go total buy-in with everything Brant Brown's teaching. And he ought to start by calling Albert Pujols, because Albert Pujols is telling him what he did for Albert. And he did a lot for Albert. This is one of the great hitters in the history of the game. So Jordan's got to make that total buy-in. And I like what he said to you. I read those comments in your story, which was well done as always. I really like what he said. But I hope this time he really, really, really means it, because we sort of have heard this before. And I'm not saying he's being dishonest or anything, like, not at all. But as soon as he gets frustrated, he goes back to his natural reflex and he gets off course again. But man, you got to buy in. You got to buy in totally, and you got to stay bought in. I mean, Brant Brown and these coaches have helped Alec Burleson. They've gotten him to a new level. I know Nolan Gorman is in a really bad spot again, so I don't know where that's going to lead. But they had made a lot of headway with Nolan Gorman, who followed their formula, and they've also done the same with Pedro Pages, who all of a sudden is a good hitter. They're not the only ones. I mean, they are getting results from some young hitters that have bought in. And Jordan Walker has just got to buy in. And if he does that, I would feel a lot better about his future. But right now, I'm pessimistic, not unreasonably so, but I would have to say I'm more pessimistic than optimistic.
I think that's fair. And I also think that pinning this on one hitting coach, Jordan Walker's had 3 hitting coaches. All right. Russ Steinhorn, he worked really well with Russ Steinhorn, former hitting coordinator for the organization. Down in the minor leagues, you think about what Turner Ward was doing here, and now you have Brant Brown. I don't think it has anything to do with one specific hitting coach. Although what Brant Brown has been doing, I think, is, again, the most buy-in that we've seen from players. Still, with Jordan, some work to be done, obviously. For Walker, I'm with you. I don't think a hot 3 weeks to finish the season is going to negate 5 months of lackluster performance. I mean, he has an OPS under 600 on the season. He's hit just 5 homers. The strikeout rate is very high. What I would love to see from Jordan to finish the year is just a strong run. But I honestly think we won't be able to define what's next for him or what the expectations are for him next season until Chaim Bloom takes over. One thing that I will admit, it's unfair that reporters do, but it's kind of unfortunate, the nature of the business right now, is we've continued to ask Ollie Marmol about the development of players and evaluation by the organization. It is his job and his coaching staff's job to develop the players at the big league level. Whether or not that should be happening at the major leagues, we can debate, but that's where the Cardinals are right now, and that's what they've defined as the coaching staff's priority. It should not be on the manager to also speak on how the organization views these players. But because of where the Cardinals are in the transition season, John Mozeliak is still the voice of the Cardinals and is still communicating the message of the players on the major league roster. Chaim Bloom is the one that is going to be evaluating Jordan Walker and where he fits in next year. So for Mo to go out and speak on the evaluation of Walker doesn't really do a lot for really, not that I don't care what Mo says, but I if I'm a fan or if I'm evaluating the future of the organization, what Mo thinks of a player right now doesn't say much to what it means for that player's future because he won't be there. I would really like to hear what Heim and Rob Serfolio and Larry Day feel about Jordan Walker. And I think we'll get more of an indication after the end of the season. I don't think Walker can just erase the 5 months of a disappointing season. He can, in the next 3 weeks, show some semblance of committing to the approach, turning things around. It's not really going to reflect in the box score, but give this new front office a reason for optimism, a reason to believe that with a new offseason, with continued new people and personnel in the minor leagues, out at the complex, that they can continue to build upon this. I wouldn't say it's a lost season for Jordan. I will say it's a disappointing one, but there is still time for him to give the front office something and see what this new personnel can do over the offseason, and we'll have a better idea of Jordan Walker come spring training. It's a toxic cycle, I know. For some players, it's worth it, though, and I believe Jordan Walker is worth it.
Yeah, there's a lot at stake here because if you look at the Cardinals system, okay, Joshua Baez, who they drafted him out of high school in 2021, the year after they drafted Walker out of high school. And Joshua Baez, it's interesting to compare the two. Joshua Baez really, really, really struggled, coming out of high school. He didn't do anything, up until this year. And his prospect light had faded. He was still good. They were still going to keep him around, but all of a sudden he's a hot prospect again. He finally figured it out. It finally clicked. And that's one thing I haven't brought up. I look at it. I should have written about this. Actually, I look at a Joshua Baez, and even though it's happening in the minor leagues, when people were starting to doubt that it would ever happen, all of a sudden this kid's figured everything out. He's still very, very young, and he'll be knocking on the door to the major leagues next season at some point. He will be. I mean, he's got 30 stolen bases. He's cut down his strikeout rate by a huge amount. He'll draw walks now. He hits for average. I mean, he's got a really great on-base percentage. All of a sudden, he's figured it out. Now, he'll have to do that at the major league level. But anyway, the reason why I'm pointing that out, because I'm not trying to dismiss any other Cardinals prospects, outfielders. That's one guy for sure who's on the rise, and he's rising quickly, Baez. But there's still time for Walker to establish himself next year as no, I'm a centerpiece. You're not going to replace me. I'm claiming my territory here. This is when it happens. This is where I get it done. Believe in me because I'll show you. And, you look at it that way, and every player's different. They're not wired the same way. So it's hard for me to say, well, he should be like this guy. He should be like that guy. It came really easy for him in the minor leagues, talking about Walker, whereas Baez couldn't figure anything out in the minor leagues. But Baez, maybe because he had extra time down there, maybe that's what he needed. I don't know. Maybe Walker came to the big leagues too soon. It's easy to second guess that now. On the other hand, he was good as a rookie. So it's a very confusing thing, but it's not like they have 5 or 6 premium prospect outfielders knocking on the door. So there's no rush to trade him. They because it's a rebuild, they still have Heimblum and his people. They have plenty of time to try to get Jordan Walker turned around because that's what a rebuild is all about. And so Walker figures prominent into that, and there's not enough other prospects who are passing him by. So it's a good time for him after the season, get through this final few weeks. It's a very good time for him to kind of reestablish himself, commit to change, and give Heimblum and his people confidence that he's figuring something out.
Agreed. And we are consistent on this podcast. We have been Jordan Walker truthers since episode 1. We remain that way on episode 91, while acknowledging it has not looked the way that we'd hoped or expected it to. I still think there's no reason to give up on this player just yet. There's no reason to give up on a lot of these guys, honestly. Heading into 2026, We'll hear from our pals at True Classic first, and then I'll get into some interesting comments Ollie Marmol made about the progression of his roster. So we will be right back.
FT fam, designer clothes can be expensive, but we want our clothes to look good. We want to feel good. We want them to be affordable. And Kratz If you tell me that I can wear a t-shirt that looks like it's tailored, but it's not actually tailored, and it just comes that way, then sign me up for True Classic.
Have to. You got to sign up for it because these shirts are soft, they're thin, they're durable, and they're very versatile. You can wear them to the gym. You can wear them out to a nice dinner. Let's get after it because these shirts are the real deal.
They are. Check it out. I've got one of the performance ones. It's a nice blue, fits well. I can go to the gym. I can go out. I can do FT in a shirt like this. FT fam, there's a reason why True Classic has sold over 25 million shirts to more than 5 million customers, and they are racking up over 200,000 5-star reviews. See for yourself with our exclusive link at trueclassic.com/foul to save. That's trueclassic.com/FOUL.
All right, our last segment before ending this podcast. We had a long, about 25-minute conversation with Ollie Marmol before Tuesday's game. Usually those sessions range to about 15 minutes, but this one was 25 minutes on the record. It started with Jordan and progressed to the roster in general. And I asked him, and I said, I'm reading off my transcript right now. I said, I'm not here to say that every single player should have taken career strides this season. But in your mind, is there anyone outside of Burleson and Herrera that has either done what you thought they should do this season or exceeded it? And the way that Ollie broke down player by player, I thought was super interesting. He started with Donovan, of course, just had a career year. I know he's hurt right now, so that's unfortunate, but his first half was really special. And I think as an organization, you're confident in what Donovan can bring to the table. Whether or not you trade him is a different story for a different episode. But then he went and broke down the pieces that we've been talking about pretty much all season in terms of what they need to do in September to solidify themselves next year. He said Lars Nootbaar, we're seeing him not be as one-dimensional as a hitter, how he's taking his approach, taking his singles the other way and hitting the ball through the middle of the field. He said that's what's next for Lars in his career. We know if he sits dead and tries to pull any ball, we know what that looks like. He can draw walks and run into balls pull side, but we want him to be more of a more dimensional hitter right now. And I do think we are seeing that from Lars. He broke down Burleson and Herrera, said they were absolute yeses in terms of improvement. For Mason Wynn, Ollie acknowledged the drop in average and OPS, but a huge gain in how he's approaching his at-bats. And like we just spent this whole episode talking about, approach is very important. He's less worried about short-term than results, right? Or short-term result, and more about approach and adjustability of what Mason's doing. So I think that also goes back to what we talked about, Bernie, with guys buying into Brant Brown's approach. We're seeing that from Mason a little bit more, and I do believe the results will follow. We've talked about Nolan Gorman all year long and his walk rate, the swing rate, or the chase rate is cut down. With Gorman, as we know, there's always going to be that swing and miss. That's just how he profiles, but it has looked better, not lately, but overall in a whole season, it's looked much better. And then Victor Scott II, I thought this was interesting. He said, Victor, I think he's so raw in his understanding of how he's being pitched to and how to combat that. That's just going to take time. That's more of a we want to see Victor continue to do what he's doing, continue to prepare. Don't change anything as far as preparation. Just give it time. And then Ollie said, for me, Walker is the one that essentially just has not lived up to the expectations this season. When you break down those lists of players, those core players that we assume until we're told otherwise will be on the team in 2026, I actually think this transition season was helpful because for so many of these players, you now know what to expect coming in 2026.
No, I agree. I think it's been more positive in terms of a case-by-case basis. And some of the cases, there's been both positive and negative. And like Nolan Gorman, for example, I asked Ollie about Nolan Gorman a lot. And Ollie, when Gorman started in late May, put together a run that really continued until recently, until late August. And now he's really struggling again. Ollie always was complimentary and he meant it, but he also held back a little bit. I don't think they were entirely sold that he could maintain the plate discipline that he started to show that was long overdue, and they were grateful to see it. And sure enough, and I'm a Gorman guy, don't get me wrong, but sure enough, these last 7 or 8 games or whatever it is, it's like all the good stuff never happened. He's got like a strikeout rate of 50%, like the last week or so. And so on one hand, you saw I think Gorman is like a good example, like a good symbol of the runway and all that stuff, because he totally bought into what they were preaching, right? And he got results. He absolutely got results, and he turned his career trajectory around. From late May until around the third week of August, he was, if not the best hitter on the team, top 2, top 3 in every category. But now we see him kind of reverting, just the way we saw, we're talking about Jordan Walker reverting. So you see guys make progress and it's exciting, but then with some of them, Gorman for sure, Walker for sure, there's always this little thing in the back of your mind. It's like, well, I don't know if I'm sold on this quite yet. And I don't know if any other type of hitters, kind of qualify that group. I mean, you look at Herrera. I was wondering with him, like he hadn't hit for power in a while. He's kind of faded from the standpoint of, oomph in his attack, but now he's gotten it back. He's made adjustments. He's sticking in the strike zone better. So that's another good example. Herrera has developed, even in a season where he had some problems, he's bounced back. He's gotten back to what he has to do to be successful. And we're seeing him rise again. So that's a good sign. So on a case-by-case basis, you can see some really good signs. You can see some disappointments. You can see players who basically do both of those things. They're up and down, which is baseball. So, but all in all, on a case-by-case basis, they did find out about several of their guys, and I think that was important.
And a lot of that, to your point, Bernie, is baseball. Like the whole point of a season is to adjust, and then when pitchers start making adjustments towards you, readjust. Every player slumps, okay? To go out there and say that Nolan Gorman was not going to slump at all this season, or Nootbaar, Donovan, pick your player. Even Burleson and Herrera, the two, I think, most consistent offensive players, have slumped this year. That is baseball. What is important is that these players continue to adjust, like we've seen Herrera do, like we've seen Burleson do. Can we see Gorman do that to finish the season? That's what I'm looking at. A 2-week slump in the grand scheme of a 162-game season, that happening 2 or 3 times a season, that does not even factor into my evaluations as a player. You account for those and you just figure they're going to happen because that's what happens in baseball. Your favorite hitter, whether that's Shohei Ohtani, whether that's Freddie Freeman, whether it's take your pick, Aaron Judge, slumps. So the fact that Nolan Gorman is going through something right now doesn't do a lot for me on the worry scale, as long as he can show in the final 20 or so games that he can turn it around a little bit. That's right. What we need to see from these players is how they adjust. Not that they're slumping, because that's going to happen, but how do they adjust and kick themselves out of it, like we've seen Herrera do over the last couple of games. Can he make it 3 games with 3 homers? Let's see. Bernie, we have Matthew Liberatore on the mound today. I thought his outing in Cincinnati was better. I know it has not been the second half that he had envisioned, but one thing that a story I'm working on is changing how we evaluate these pitchers. We are no longer looking at box score results when it comes to the careers of Matthew Liberatore, Michael McGreevy, and Andre Palante. We are looking at the predictive stats to see what this team can count on next season. It's not a great place to be as a fan. You want to care about going out there and winning every game. Right. I get it. But for what the Cardinals are trying to do, especially with these 3 players, because we know how thin that rotation looks next year, is to look at the stats that predict how they're going to have future success and where they measure up. For Libby, it's a lot about different command of different pitches, sustaining velo to an extent. I'm less worried about what inning he gets to tonight. I'm more interested to see where that pitch count is when the velo starts to drop, and I think that's how the Cardinals are evaluating him as well. What would you like to see from Libby tonight?
Well, I think you summed it up very well. I don't know if I have anything really good to add. I think he's still learning how to pitch as a starting pitcher in the major leagues, which means you have to diversify your pitch mix. You have to introduce new pitches, which he's done at least with one pitch. He's thrown differently now. He's made that adjustment, and you have to show hitters that that you're not predictable, and that they better stay sharp, because you're not going to make it easy for them. And I think that this is why I like him, and I'm not down on him at all. I think he's a really smart guy. I think he's extremely competitive. I think he wants to learn, and I think he has a lot of self-awareness. I mean, he knows what he's got to do, and he's smart enough to do it, and it's just a process. And so he hit the proverbial speed bump, but I think he's been bouncing back from that. Yeah, you'd like to see more swing and miss and all that. But again, this is kind of a learning season for him. He'd never been a starting pitcher in the big leagues before. So I'm good with him. And I think that the more he sort of enhances his pitch mix, I think that's one step that is going to do him good if he can continue to do that.
Well, let's see what Libby's got in this thrilling September interleague series between two teams below 500. We'll see. Busch Stadium looked a little barren yesterday. I would expect more of the same. But
17,000.
17,002, smallest full capacity crowd in the history of Busch Stadium too, or Busch Stadium.
Yeah, boy, I don't. Yeah, are we down to the diehards now, or like in other words, everyone's jumped off? But the Cardinals down to what, the hardcore 20,000 now, 23,000? It seems like it. It seems like it.
It's interesting. It's definitely interesting. I do like the fact that the sections are so like they're so randomized. There are like 2 or 3 people in each section, which means the section right below the press box, I can hear every conversation. Whatever fans are sitting there, they have been hilarious the last 3 days. Just nonstop. Some real good zingers. I've been taking notes. You know what
I'd like to do? I'm sorry to extend this. I know you got to get moving, but I'm actually going to talk about your home territory.
Oh gosh. I
love the old Candlestick Park for many reasons. Number one, it saved my life in the 1989 World Series with the earthquake. I'm up there in the upper deck and I feel the whole stadium swaying, and I really thought I was going to die. So talking to some Bay Area writers said, they have made this thing earthquake proof. And I'm like, thank you, Candlestick. I will always love you. And it's true. But I used to love, when I've traveled all the time, I used to love when I get my early column done or whatever, ballparks where there were a lot of open seats because they weren't drawing. I used to love to move around the ballpark. I'd go for like 2 or 3 innings. I'd say to Rick Hummel, I'll be back. I'm just going to walk the ballpark. I go sit here. I go sit there. I'd take in the vantage point. I'd listen in on fans and what they were saying. I'm seeing what everybody's eating. I'm just taking mental notes and just sort of getting the ballpark experience. So, yeah, I would say to fans, this is a great time to actually come. I'm not trying to sell tickets here, but it's like Busch Stadium, like you haven't seen it before. You can walk around. You got freedom to move. You can try things out. It's kind of casual. You're not all packed in. So anyway, there's actually some peace and enjoyment in that type of experience. I used to do that all the time on the road.
It is very relaxing. I did exactly that on Sunday at Great American Ballpark. It was like the 3rd inning. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to take a lap around this ballpark because I've never done that before. I've been at Great American Ballpark like 30 times, and I've never taken a full lap. And it was just so cool. I love doing that for different away games, especially if the away team is kind of not a super full stadium. So I get it, Bernie. And also, my dad was at that Game 3 1989 game, Giants A's. My dad grew up in the Bay Area, and my grandma called in and won tickets on a radio station for him. My dad still to this day is like bewildered because she doesn't like sports, but she knew that my dad wanted to go, so she figured she'd try, and then won the tickets. So there he is. I actually have the ticket on my sports memorabilia bookcase from that game. You'd be shocked to know, if you know my father at all, he had no idea what was going on. He thought like fans were like stomping their feet. It was probably
I did too.
And then way later did he find out that it was actually a devastating earthquake. So.
There's a Bay Area reporter that I knew very well. I haven't talked to him in a long time, Bob Podecki. And he was like 2 seats down from me in the auxiliary box, which is out in the stands. And I looked at him terrified. He said, earthquake.
That's so California. That's the most California thing.
He's like, hold tight, earthquake. And I was just like, what do you mean earthquake? And it seemed like it went on for 2 minutes, and it was only like 10 seconds, but man, what a story. What an experience. No, was your dad sitting upper deck or down low? Yeah. Or upper deck was the scary place.
Yeah.
That was the scary place. So anyway, and the night before, I'm sorry, too many stories now. The night before, I'm out with a bunch of my Bay Area sports writer friends, and we're having like a few beers at Lefty O'Doul's, right? That old classic. Yeah, right? So old school hangout. And we were sitting there. And this will be the last story because I know you have to get to the ballpark.
No, I love this.
We're sitting there. It's like Bruce Jenkins, it was Ray Rattos, all these different people. And we're sitting there and we're talking about because the A's swept the first 2 games of the series, right? And it wasn't even close. And we're all talking about, man, this series is really boring, man. There's nothing to write about. It's kind of the same thing. We know the A's are good. We know about La Russa, blah, 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 blah. We need some action. There's got to be some excitement. It's just really dull. And I went back to my room and I wrote a column. Oh, the World Series is dull. And the next day, earthquake.
Yeah, be careful what you wish for, Bernie.
Yeah, the World Series wasn't so dull after that. So anyway, and I got put on earthquake duty, and you wouldn't believe the stories. I loved the experience. I wish I never had it because it was all the damage and all the people that were affected. But they put me on earthquake duty, and I was just roaming around Northern California looking for stories. So that was a very unforgettable experience in many ways.
Very rarely do us baseball scribes have to be pulled into doing what I call real reporter shit. But when we do, it's an unforgettable experience.
Right.
So no, I love the story time, especially when it involves my beloved Bay Area. Lots of Bay Area writers coming to St. Louis this weekend with the Giants in town for Friday, Saturday, and Sunday's game. Hall of Fame weekend as well. Lots of former Cardinals in town. Plenty of tickets still available. Trust me. If you're looking to attend, here are those Hall of Famers currently scheduled to be in attendance. It's Edgar Renteria is being inducted, the late Walt Jocketty, very, very well deserved for these guys. Danny Cox will be in attendance, Ricky Horton, our favorite Willie McGee, Terry Pendleton, Ozzie Smith, of course. This is all from the 1985 NL Championship team, so they'll be in attendance as well. And then the usual Hall of Famers will be there. So it's always a fun weekend at Busch Stadium. I think it's one of the things the Cardinals continue to do exceptionally well is Hall of Fame weekend. Yeah,
they do. And I miss my friend Walt Jocketty, and it's sad that he can't be there, but I know his family is beyond joyful that he got in. And I know a lot of those Cardinals players that he traded for, he changed their careers. He changed their lives by giving them a chance to play in World Series and, win a world championship. A lot of those guys that he traded for are going to be there this weekend. And now, I'm not just an old salty dog. When I think about those days, I have fond memories. I was working, but I had fond memories. And the idea of these players coming back to St. Louis just to honor Walt, it's one of those things that gets to me emotionally. It's powerful. So I hope everyone goes down there and kind of savors what they're watching, because it's really special when everybody comes home to thank Walt Jocketty for changing their lives and their careers.
Agreed. I usually can't go to the ceremony because it's during pregame, but I think I'm going to make an exception this time. So yeah, hope to see you all there. Bernie and I will be back with you at the end of the Giants series. Chip Carey and Brad Thompson joined the show on Friday for a little behind the scenes on how the Cardinals broadcast works. And as someone who has been in that booth many a time that season, you do not want to miss all their antics. For whatever you think they are on the air, they are 10 times worse behind the scenes. So looking forward to having two of my friends on the show. And they'll talk a little bit about their charity event coming up in the middle of September. Bernie, you got anything cooking up?
No, just going to be looking forward to some good college football this weekend, as always, and grinding away. Right.
Almost to the finish line. Don't blink. Just a homestand and a half left here in St. Louis. So
yeah, and by the way, they down in Hattiesburg, Mississippi, they hate your football coach.
Good.
They do, because he was complaining about the hotels. There's no hotels. I don't want to stay in a casino. We can't find the food. He was making it sound like Mississippi State is just like somewhere up in the mountains. There's like no people there or whatever. Well, they're all going nuts.
The innovation pipeline that is Arizona State University. Their expectations are a little different.
I know. So anyway, I've kept you long enough. It was fun chattering about this stuff.
No, this is a good one. You can find all of Bernie's work at STL Sports Central. He's on with KMOX. You can read my stuff at The Athletic. And we'll be back with you on Sunday. Have a great week. See you guys.